So last Friday, there was an International Trans Right Day of Visibility at one of the local parks, and it turned into this.
I've got to stop it. I've got to stop it right there. It turned into this, and they made it look like that person was screaming at Billboard Chris for, 3 seconds, not even. 0, 1, 2. They make it look like that altercation lasted one FU and was not, I forget how long it was, like a minute of FU. Okay. Full disclosure. Until about 15 minutes before this stream, I did not know who these people were. And I don't say it as in a snobby, arrogant, pompous, like, I don't even know who these people. I don't get to consume enough media, if that's believable. And so I don't get to watch as much as I'd like to. So I don't know of everybody, but I have now been exposed to, what are they called? Something in Steele. Their name is in there. Steele and Vance. I have now been exposed to Steele and Vance, and they seem to be the Canadian version of The View. Now, I'm sorry for interrupting. This is supposed to be the intro video.
So last Friday, there was an International Trans Right Day of Visibility at one of the local parks, and it turned into this.
And I'm back. Okay, so we talked about this last week. Coming out of
All right, so you saw the man who was getting sort of grabbed at the chest. His name is Billboard Chris.
Grabbed at the chest. Sort of grabbed at the chest. Here, let's just show. Here, let's see this. Sort of. I'm sorry. I'm going crazy. Sort of grabbed at the chest. That's a trachea ripping right there, gentle ladies. That's not sort of getting grabbed. That's someone going and trying to rip out Chris's Adam's apple. Sort of getting grabbed at the chest. Just.
That's who I was talking about in the
getting sort of grabbed at the chest. His name is Billboard Chris.
Yeah, he was who I was talking about in the hot headlines.
Mm-hmm.
This person who, if you followed along on his social media, you would be appalled at the behavior and what he's wearing.
Oh, really? Well, that relies on the ignorance of your crowd. Is anybody in their right mind appalled by what Chris, they might be appalled by what Chris shares on his social media, because it's, people from medical institutions talking about gender-affirming hysterectomies. It gets worse.
Intolerance in his sign. He's got the selfie stick with his camera rolling, like he's just trying to make something happen in a place, in a space that's supposed to be celebrating a part of society that has existed.
He's just making something happening by standing there. Like, when it comes to one protest, break windows and burn buildings. But when it comes to another protest, standing there quietly with a billboard is just trying to make something happen. So like when someone goes and tries to rip out his trachea, he provoked it by standing there. And don't believe me. That's the position of the cops in Vancouver, but we'll get there.
Existed forever.
And he calls himself a child protection advocate.
Oh, please.
And then he's just agitating. And not just against the people who are there to celebrate the trans community, also going after the police.
Going after the police.
Female officer in particular.
Watch this.
They were just going hard after her. Watch this.
Honestly, I'd want to. Crazy.
Honestly, I'd want to. Oh.
We're just going hard after her. Watch this.
Honestly,
it's crazy. Yeah.
That's called, honestly, I just want to physically assault the man who was just physically assaulted in the video that we saw. This is the most courageous tough talk I've ever seen in my life. It's the most courageous, self-righteous promotion of violence I've ever seen in my life. At least they're polite, right? At least they're doing it in the name of virtue.
Police. There was one female officer in particular. They were just going hard.
Going hard.
Honestly,
very hard.
Yeah.
I just want to.
Excuse me. Did you just say he came here to incite violence by forcing his opinion on people?
Yeah.
Yes. You think he came here to incite violence because they got offended by his sign?
When you talk to someone and scream at someone and
he
put
didn't
your
scream
face,
at all.
Yes,
he didn't. They put their face in his face. What is wrong with you?
Okay.
So are you saying the guy who?
How on earth did you become a police officer? She's literally sitting here saying that Billboard Chris is inciting violence by standing there with his sign. Is that really your position?
Okay, sir. We're done with this conversation.
Okay,
yeah,
that's good.
So.
I hate to use anything from Rebel Media.
No.
But did that just because
news.
to me it shows.
It's not. Can you listen to these?
I hate to use anything from Rebel Media.
I hate him.
No.
But did that just because
news.
to
It's
me
not
it
news.
shows.
These pompous, arrogant, over the top, demeaning, insulting, patronizing, defaming, violence promoting hacks. Oh my! Oh, I hate. Oh, sorry, I'm making it really. That's when they say, anger is a consuming force. It makes people make faith. I hate to use rebel news. They're not news. We're news. Two idiots promoting violence, misrepresenting what actually happened, defaming an individual, relying on the ignorance of their audience, who is not, I don't know, maybe not familiar with Billboard Chris, maybe hasn't actually seen my interview with Billboard Chris. Oh, righty then. Good afternoon. I wasn't going to go live today. I spent the better part of the day. What did I do today? I went for the jog early on in the day. Apparently the frogs or the toads have now, their eggs have hatched. I'm going for a jog and I see what I thought they were like little pieces of leaves blowing across the sidewalk. And then I realized there are a bunch of baby toads, but not like the hermit toads, like the ones that stay small. Just baby toads everywhere. And then for anybody who might have been looking at me from a distance, I looked like the totally like craziest spasmodic person on earth, because I'm jumping around tiptoeing, and then I had to jump onto the road to avoid them. But then, I'm sitting around doing some work, clipping some highlights from last night's stream. And then I see this. Well, I saw that later on in the day. I saw a story about the Dalai Lama apologizing for a video that's doing the rounds on the internet, and I hadn't seen this video. Then I went to see the video. Didn't really fit with the Dalai Lama's description of what actually happened. We'll talk about that. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but I don't know why. But I do know why. To generate interaction. Twitter has been recommending some people to me, and I've been watching them. And it's beyond hypocrisy at this point in time. It's not hypocrisy. It's not double standards. It's lawlessness. You have this kid who, good for him, he's speaking his mind. It would just be nice if he would do it consistently and logically. Harry J. Sisson, who at least, unless it's a computer-generated image or, advanced AI, he's a real human. The flavor of the day is to loud celebrate, what's the word? Opposite of demonize? Lionize. Proselytize? No, that's not the right word. Lionize the two Tennessee lawmakers who were expelled from the Tennessee legislature. Lionize them. They were just being the righteous protesters, sticking it to the man. Their expulsion is egregious. It's an injustice. It's racism. But impeaching the president for imploring his supporters to march on the Capitol and protest peacefully and patriotically, that's totally logical. Oh, I said I was going to talk about the Riley Gaines story yesterday. We're going to. Let me look at the title here. Riley Gaines, Dalai Lama, Daniel Perry, Tennessee Hypocrisy. Viva Freu. I've been typoing my way into infamy. It says Viva Freu, Freu, and I spelled the Dalai Lama as in llama, the animal, and not llama, the human. And I meant no disrespect by that. It's just, I don't even know if it's autocorrect or if that's how I thought it was spelled with two L's. Now, the question is this. We are going to go to Rumble. We're going to go to Rumble exclusively for a number of reasons, not the least of which is, some of this stuff is going to be instantly demonetized on YouTube, and I do not care about the monetization of the videos. I care about the suppression of the content. But we're going to go over to Rumble. So the question is, what do we start with on on Rumble, YouTube, and local? So let me just make sure we're all rolling here. We are good. There is oh, son of a bee sting. And now I hope I didn't just lose the Rumble rants. We're live on Rumble, live on YouTube, live on locals. Want to make sure that that's good as well. So you can we are live on locals, and there's the beautiful picture of the Scottish Terrier sitting at home from L&F. It's too much. It's too much. At some point you can laugh at it, but at another point it'll drive you crazy. So you have to keep laughing if you're not going to go crazy. Let's start with Henry Sisson. Let's start with I need to find it. I have too many things in the background here. We're going to start with Henry Sisson, and then we're going to get to, I had another Twitter exchange with Mehdi Hassan yesterday about the conviction of Daniel Perry in Texas. So we're gonna look at that, and then it devolved as do. Oh yeah, and then the FBI. Oh my God, there's so much. Okay, we're gonna start with Henry J. Sisson, share, an individual who I do not mind people expressing themselves. I do not mind. It's good. Being vocal, wanting to make a change is good. And when you're young, that's typically the sentiment. You want to make a change. You want to be value added. You want to change the world for the better. The problem is, for too many people, being young and ideological, or being young and naive, being young and not knowing how to think critically, will make you want to change. And then the way you do that is by taking the path of least resistance, the most obvious, the most immediately gratifying pursuit of change, which is not always the correct one. Oh, it's Harry Sisson, not Henry. Sorry. Harry J. Sisson. Republicans thought that Gen Z was going to sit down and shut up about the Tennessee 3. They couldn't be more wrong. I don't think anybody thought that. Let's hear what Harry Sisson has to say. I've seen some videos of Harry Sisson on the street doing interviews. So let's hear what Harry Sisson has to say.
To all the Republicans who expected Gen Z to just sit down and shut up about them expelling Democrats from the Tennessee legislature, you couldn't have been more wrong, because a majority of the Nashville Metropolitan City Council will vote to reinstate Representative Justin Jones back into the Tennessee legislature. And to the Republicans, how does it feel to know that you lost? You tried to put in your fascist, crazy agenda and you lost. You tried to silence their voices, you lost. You tried to silence the voices of Gen Z activists and you lost. And if you thought this was bad, just wait until 2024 when there's a wave of young voters letting Republicans know exactly what we think about them. To all of the Republicans.
First of all, can you understand that the criticism here is that Republicans tried to shut down activism from the Tennessee 3? And it's an amazing, it's like branding. Everything is branding. Tennessee 3. They are being hailed as heroes. We talked about it last night. The expulsion might not have been my first course of action if I were there. I can understand it. I don't think I would have voted for it in principle, but that might have been the person who believes in principles that says, I won't do it here, to the extent that we would be equally ideologically accommodating when the shoe is on the other foot, but the other foot is never that accommodating. The other foot doesn't let you put the shoe on it, and it just sticks itself up your rear. I would have probably said no. There's a number of reasons. It might just be a Pyrrhic victory to the extent that they can go and get reelected back into office, as I think is the process that can be done, as we discussed yesterday with Robert Barnes. And in which case they're going to be the double heroes. You're like, you've expelled them, now they're back in. Flip side to that is maybe they won't engage in deliberate, overt rule breaking by protesting, organizing, protesting, facilitating what, if the shoe were on the other foot, would be described as an insurrection. Maybe they'll think twice about how and when they protest. Maybe not. But can you just appreciate the hypocrisy and the double standards of what is being said here? And it's what's being said across the board. They're heroes for their protest.
A majority of the Nashville Metropolitan City Council will vote to reinstate Representative Justin Jones back into the Tennessee legislature. And to the Republicans, how does it feel to know that you lost? You tried to put in your fascist, crazy agenda.
Fascist, crazy agenda. Consistency would not be too much to ask, but it's not about consistency. It's not about double standards. It is about lawlessness, which is weaponizing the law against your ideological adversaries and claiming exemptions, lionizing yourself for your own disruption of that very same law. It is lawlessness. And if Harry J. Sisson believes that Jones and the Tennessee 3 are heroes for having protested what they think is a worthwhile subject matter to protest, which I think most people would agree it's relevant, it's important. If they're heroes for protesting the way they did, knowingly, deliberately, overtly breaking the rules, facilitating protest, screaming with a bullhorn in a place of government, that is literally, maybe we could say, sans a little bit of the violence that occurred on January 6th, might have been instigated by those dozens of informants, FBI agitators, FBI, whatever, Might have been some of that violence might have been stoked by agitators. It doesn't seem that the other side, infiltrates its own agitators into the left side of the protest, but it is identical ideologically. Protest, loud, disrupting government. One is insurrection, for which people have gone to jail for years. The other is righteous. The other is protected by the law. The other is exempt from any form of repercussions. Forget the Tennessee Three going to jail, being charged with insurrection, sedition, seditious conspiracy. It's getting close. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's getting close if it's not that already. But at least, hey, maybe now, if they've been expelled and they go and they just go get reelected, maybe they'll think twice about the method of doing it the next time. Maybe they'll double down and get even more aggressive and rely on the fact that they'll get voted back in if they get expelled again. Let me see here. I don't want to bring up anything. I want to bring up something. Okay, the Tennessee rep didn't like that he didn't get his way on that vote. Figured I'll call a protest, shutting down the process. It's so obviously an egregious double standard. There's no way to look at it, but it's not a double standard. It leads to lawlessness. It leads to lawlessness where you literally persecute those on the other side of the aisle for what you yourself have done. One gets protection, one gets persecution. All animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. Now, speaking of all animals being equal, but some are more equal than others, we talked about the Perry conviction. So Texas, Daniel Perry, convicted. Now I keep forgetting if it's it was second-degree murder. Let me just double check, refresh my senile memory. Daniel Perry. Guilty of murder. First degree or second degree? Second degree. It was second degree murder. Second degree, guilty of murder after he shot and killed. Why are they not saying if it's Daniel? Chat's going to let me know, for goodness sake, am I senile? We talk about the lawlessness, and people cannot appreciate the comparisons because it will illustrate the lawlessness. You have people right now applauding the conviction of Daniel Perry for the shooting in Texas. The victim was a man openly carrying an AR. It was an AK-47. So you have people applauding the conviction of a man who was in his car who, by his own testimony, by the video evidence, might have taken a wrong turn, swarmed by protesters. Among the protesters is a protester carrying openly an AK-47, but it's legal in Texas. And then that man gets shot. And the man who shoots him also with a legally procured firearm, they applaud him being found guilty of murder. The victim openly carrying an AK-47. It's an amazing thing how in circumstances which are similar but not identical and distinguishable on material grounds, Kyle Rittenhouse openly carrying a rifle at a protest, a protest that he was there to help with, not assist and partake in, openly carrying, as per the laws of the land, they wanted him convicted of murder. So the hero, when it's them, is different, is the hero in their story, whereas when it's on the other side, is the villain in the other story. People have to appreciate this as well. It materially different, but nonetheless sufficiently similar. If they applaud Daniel Perry getting convicted of murder, they should also support Gage Grosskreutz. They should support Gage Grosskreutz being charged with attempted murder. The material difference? Gage Grosskreutz was in possession of that firearm illegally. The material difference? Gage Grosskreutz chased down an open carrying Kyle Rittenhouse, unaware of what was going on. So material differences there. It's not as though Gage Grosskreutz stumbled upon the incident and didn't know that Kyle Rittenhouse, openly carrying, was acting in self-defense. And we had talked about this in Kyle Rittenhouse. There was a conceivable world where it could have been legitimate self-defense for both people involved. If Gage Grosskreutz had not been pursuing Kyle Rittenhouse, knowing what had just transpired, but instead had come across the situation and didn't know that Kyle was acting in self-defense and legitimately feared for his life, not knowing that, there could have been an argument for mutual self-defense for whomever the survivor would have been. But the people applauding the conviction of Daniel Perry have to then support the idea that Gage Grosskreutz has to be charged with attempted murder, or at the very least aggravated assault, something along those lines, because he was carrying a gun, and had he successfully shot and killed Kyle Rittenhouse, other than being applauded as a hero for having stopped an active shooter, that's how the left would have framed it. Had he successfully killed Kyle Rittenhouse, well, he would have to be convicted of murder in the same way they are applauding Daniel Perry for getting convicted of murder right now. Now, that being said, one has to check one's own bias as well and motivated reasoning as well, because in the Rittenhouse case, I could have understood and I could have appreciated the argument that had it ended differently under the circumstances, both parties could have had a claim for mutual self-defense. It's a theory that we actually floated among the lawyers on the panels at the time. Having seen what happened here, in as much as I saw some of the trial and read up on it afterwards, where you have the victim of the shooting who's not at a protest for the same reasons Kyle Rittenhouse was there. You might think those reasons are dumb and he shouldn't have been there in the first place, but they were there for different reasons. One was to partake in the protest. In Rittenhouse's case, he was not there to partake in the protest whatsoever. Material difference. Because if you are a bystander on that street and you make a wrong turn and your car gets swarmed by people who you know are protesters there, one of whom is carrying an AK-47, well, your frame of mind is a lot different. Your frame of mind is a lot different than Gage Grosskreutz, who went to the protest packing illegal heat. So in the Texas case, just so that one is not oneself guilty of motivated reasoning and saying, well, I want Daniel Perry to be found innocent because I want to find a way to claim this as self-defense. There are very, very material differences between Rittenhouse and Daniel Perry's conviction. A dude, he had some very compromising text messages or Facebook posts, might have to shoot some protesters or might have to kill some protesters. They're outside my house. Whether or not that's just dark humor or someone who's premeditating going out and looking for trouble. The jury heard the evidence and the jury came to their conclusion. But the material difference in circumstances is a dude in his car with his girlfriend on the side, apparently taking a wrong turn or not, getting swarmed by a bunch of angry protesters who start banging on the door, one of whom is at the driver's side carrying an AK-47. Perry thinks he's at risk, does what he has to do in self-defense in his own mind. One can make the distinctions here. But the left, praising this conviction, not understanding the implications it would have to have for the other cases. It's not double standards, people. It's lawlessness. And so I got into a bit of a discussion, although it's never really a discussion on Twitter. It is who can get the biggest gotcha. All right, let me see. This one we have to go a little bit down. We have to go down the Twitter memory hole. Not the Twitter memory hole, the Twitter rabbit hole. Okay, here we go. Let's go all the way down. Is there any other? You're leaving out the part where? So we got Nuance Bro. Don't know who he is. And not, again, when I say that, it's never... only 50. It's never that. I just, you go down these rabbit holes, you meet new people on the internet. I make videos about politics and current events and stuff. I like to make a funny movie from time to time on the web. That's Nuance Bro. Nuance Bro, in his take on the trial, who was he responding to? Oh, he was responding to, you never end. Less than 24 hours ago, Daniel Perry was convicted by a jury of murder after he shot a protester point blank during a BLM rally blocks away from the state capitol. Greg Abbott says he's working on a pardon to pardon Perry 1 day later. Absolutely insane. I can appreciate how people find that absolutely insane. Mehdi Hassan says the Republican Party is the party of violent crime and disorder, not law and order. Not sure why Dems can't say this. They're too busy saying summer of love. Now, Nuance Bro says you're leaving out the part where he had an AK-47 pointed at him while a violent mob surrounded his vehicle. This is true. The only obvious retort to this is you're forgetting the part where he had a trial. He said that and a jury didn't believe him. Why the jury didn't believe him? Up in the air. Maybe it was the propensity of the evidence. Maybe it's a jury pool in Austin. We saw how that worked out in the Alex Jones defamation trial, which was not a defamation trial. It was just a trial on the quantum of the damages after a default judgment. We've seen the Austin jury pool. I've seen it. I went down to the Jones trial on jury selection day. I talked to people. Didn't broadcast any of that video. In fact, I didn't record any of it because I didn't want anybody feeling uncomfortable or feeling reluctant to talk. I talked to the jury members. I say this without judgment. There's predictability in the Austin jury pool that I encountered at the Alex Jones trial. To which Mehdi Hassan says, you're leaving out the part where this was his defense in court. It was rejected by a jury of his peers, and he was found guilty of murder in Texas. In Austin, Mehdi Hassan. Not in Texas, in Austin. And what's amazing here is I want to say, yeah, now do all of those other cases of people who were convicted of crimes in various jurisdictions that were going to be necessarily hostile to the accused. But that would be, that's not the best type of argument to get into on Twitter or ever, because you can always distinguish the cases. You're leaving out the part, this was his defense in court. It was rejected by a jury of his peers, and he was found guilty of murder in Texas, in Austin. To which I said, you're leaving out the part where the lead investigator was told to exclude exculpatory evidence from the indictment. And then, because we all know what I'm talking about here, did you know that, Mehdi Hassan? Because it seems like it's just error after error. That's a glib joke. Surely you are prepared to live by the standards you set for others. Now, we talked about this affidavit yesterday. This is the affidavit in which the lead investigator, paragraph 3, says, I was told to remove exculpatory information that I had intended to present to the grand jury during my testimony. At that point, I specifically asked if there would be ramifications, yada, yada, yada. And where does it say that? Yeah, here we go. His presentation of 158 slide PowerPoint presentation, it was reduced to 56 slides. Now, I'm not an idiot because I can anticipate the argument. And the argument is going to be, whatever happened before the grand jury is irrelevant because he had his trial. Do you know what that's like saying? Well, hold on. Let's finish this. Let's finish this rabbit hole thread here. Rabbit hole thread. So I say you left out the part where the lead investigator was told to exclude exculpatory evidence. The affidavit is from August 2021. True. The cop Fugit, testified the jury heard him and still found Perry guilty. That's true. The prosecution asked Fugit if he had been wrong in any of his homicide cases, and Fugit acknowledged that he had, and he's citing an article by CBS Austin, not Texas, Austin, in which that's true. And all of that is true. There's an interesting, here, this is the article, you can just have a look later. All of it is true, but the interesting thing is this. Item 3, does this go back even further? No, it doesn't. Item 3 is the interesting one. Because it shows you, on the one hand, what happens when things make it to a jury. I've always said this. In civil litigation, and in Canada or in Quebec, we don't have jury civil trials. So come on, get over here. If anything is left in the hands of a judge, and I've always said this to clients, and they sometimes don't like hearing it because everybody's case is a slam dunk surefire case. Anything left in the hands of a judge is 50-50. Anything left in the hands of a jury is going to be equally roulette to some point. You don't know the way a jury is going to go. You can predict it, and you can predict a way an Austin jury pool is going to go. Ideally, it would be a jury of your peers. I would venture a wager of a guess that this jury, in law, might be a jury of his peers. In fact, probably not. You leave something in the hands of a jury. If it gets to the hands of a jury, you don't know which way it's going to go. The question here is, should this have even gotten to the hands of a jury? When you have the prosecution saying, we want to find a way to prosecute, when you have the investigator or the DA, whatever they are, saying, I want to prosecute this, and I want the grand jury to just rubber stamp this ham sandwich so we can submit it to a jury and take our chances ratifying our own injustice in front of a jury, and then we can wash our hands and say, well, the jury bought it. The jury, for whatever the reasons, went ahead with the conviction of arguably a case that ought never have been tried in the first place. Rittenhouse should not have been tried in the first place. And when you have one of the lead investigators saying, we should not be prosecuting this, and his authority saying, take out those 100 pages of exculpatory evidence, and we're going to get this ham sandwich rubber stamped by an Austin grand jury. Well, I presume it's Austin. You are just asking to take that chance. Let's flip the coin and appreciate also that a jury, the jury appreciates fact, the judge appreciates law. And so when you have, we got a troll in the house. Hold on. I love it, actually, because it means that someone's actually created a new account. It's a bot because I've never talked to the Dalai Lama before. And I'm going to go ahead and not star that by any means. I'm going to go ahead and block that user because that's a bot, and I don't care about critique. Bots and spamming is what gets it. It's arguable that it should have ever gotten to a jury in the first place. And when you have the prosecution saying, take out the exculpatory evidence just so that we can get this rubber stamped and then submit it to a jury and take our chances there, we're prepared to do that. Now, I know the argument that you do not need to submit exculpatory evidence to a grand jury. I know that. I mean, what the degree to which that's true. I mean, we've seen it now where you get either absolute or qualified immunity if you destroy exculpatory evidence. What we're talking about right now is ratifying the injustice of the procedure, of the process, so that we can take our chances getting the injustice ratified on final judgment. And the analogy that I have is with Trump. Like, if this gets to a jury, it doesn't matter how bogus the charges are. You're dealing with a jury that might be politically motivated. What district are they in New York? They're not in Staten Island. I forget what district they're in. But you're not in Staten Island. And so you get Alvin Bragg, Soros-funded, let's just bring a politically motivated indictment against the former president. Doesn't matter how thin it is. Maybe we'll be able to dupe a jury. Like, maybe a jury is it's going to be so complicated. It's like Parkinson's law. If you don't know what Parkinson's law of mundanity is, at any boardroom meeting at an office, they'll spend 15 minutes talking about the most complex corporate issues, and they'll spend 3 hours talking about where to place the water cooler, because things which are easy to understand, everyone has an opinion on. Things which are complex, nobody wants to bother to understand. It's Parkinson's law of mundanity. Then you got Parkinson's law of triviality. Sorry, that's Parkinson's law of triviality. Then there's another Parkinson's law, which is the time it takes to accomplish a task will expand to fit the time you have to accomplish the task. But you're going to have a jury say, geez, it's falsifying business records. I don't even know what that is. Guilty, because we hate this guy. Sounds good enough. We don't know what the law ultimately says about all this. We're only here. Did he falsify business records? Oh. Was it an underlying crime of a federal election that we're not even allowed adjudicating upon? Well, if it gets to jury, don't expect the jury members to ask these questions. Oh, so that's what's going on there. Now, so with Mehdi Hassan, he raised 3 legitimate points. Now, how did it end? Hold on one second. How did this end? Oh, yes. So then I also said, this is a little bit more of the Gish Gallop. We're in a Twitter exchange, so let's throw item after item out. And people are pointing out the Gish Gallop has to be specious or baseless arguments. I'll call it the Viva Freu iteration of the Gish Gallop. Just throw out too many points to reply to in a tweet, knowing the medium does not allow for it, or in interview format, bombard your interviewee with more than he can respond to in the time allotted. The idea that even if this homicide detective had been wrong previously on unrelated other issues, we're admitting that this injustice happened. We are admitting that this lead investigator was told to remove and had removed from his presentation to the grand jury 100 pages of exculpatory evidence, which might have resulted in this not even being tried before a jury that might have been amenable to punish who they feel to be the bad man with the gun, because this time it seems like he had a good guy with the gun. Or at least a guy who was allowed to have the gun. And him holding the gun in the presence of other people was not an act of provocation like it was in Rittenhouse. Here, he was the victim, despite a mob of angry protesters approaching a car, encircling it, slamming on the door, while the guy stands 18 inches from the driver at the driver's seat, apparently, according to the witness testimony, which the jury did not buy, with his gun raised in a menacing position. Item 3 is particularly egregious. If he had been wrong, okay, fine. In other words, it's true. He was told to exclude the exculpatory evidence, but let's ignore it. Then I get accused. I love this. I get accused of not knowing what the Gish Gallop is, but this is another wonderful, wonderful debate tactic. You don't actually know what the Gish Gallop is, but congrats on the use of big words. Thank you. I've indulged you enough. You're an attention seeker. I'm an attention seeker who keeps moving the goalposts. When he loses the argument, your affidavit was from 2021. Your investigator got to testify. Bye-bye. This is where like Twitter's not good because we're talking over each other right now. I agree with all of that. The argument would be that this should never have gotten to a jury because it probably, there's a decent argument that it ought not have been prosecuted in the first place. The argument is that once it gets to a jury, oftentimes facts don't matter. They've come in with their minds made up. Motivated reasoning. Barnes and I have talked about this a lot. But moving the goalposts, confession through protection. I'm an attention seeker. That's what got me a little bit. And if I am an attention seeker, which I'm not, I have a good memory. I remember Mehdi Hassan, after his intellectually honest takedown of Matt Taibbi, posted this wonderful, nothing attention-seeking about this. As this Taibbi interview clip is about to hit 5 million views, look at all the attention I've got. Now's a good time now's as good as time as any for 2 shameless plugs from me. Watch the Mehdi Hassan show on MSNBC. No, thank you. Buy my book, Win Every Argument. But Mark Twain said, if you can judge a man by the adjectives he uses to describe others, confession through projection. I'm an attention seeker moving the goalposts when I lose the argument. He did write a book called Win Every Argument. And I was thinking about this before I went to bed after this Twitter exchange. Like, can you imagine thinking that it's a good thing to walk around saying, I'm going to win every argument? Can you imagine winning every argument, whatever that means in your own mind, if it means having learned nothing? Can you imagine winning every argument and learning nothing? What could be more meaningless and vapid of an existence? Congratulations. Enjoy your trophy. The purpose of arguments and the purpose of discussions is not to win. And I dare say, and I will say, it's not even to convince your interlocutor that you're right. If you get into a discussion where that is the purpose, it's disingenuous and it's fruitless. In fact, when I get into discussions, I want to know what the other person has to say. I like the arguments that Mehdi Hassan brings. They're good arguments because they illustrate, as far as I'm concerned, the actual underlying problem. When you get a conviction from a jury of something that arguably should never have been prosecuted in the first place in a what I think is an objectively, ideologically, politically biased venue, when you like the outcome, it's justice. When you don't like the outcome, it's systemic racism. It's something else. Yeah, but the idea, win every argument. That's the purpose of life. It is not the purpose of life, Mehdi. In fact, it should be this: how to engage in discussion, how to understand what the other person is saying, even if it is to ultimately come to the conclusion that person is crazy, that person espouses beliefs that I will never espouse. I'm glad I had the discussion with them because I'm glad I know who to avoid next Christmas. Okay. We're gonna go on over to Rumble now. Hold on, let me just see here. Refresh. Very nice. Let me see here. Oh, we got Rumble rants. Okay, I'm gonna do the Rumble rants on both because that would not be fair. And then I'm going to. Oh, the air conditioning just came on. You guys can't see it, but I'm sweating like a pig. Pigs don't sweat. Okay, I'm sweating like a. Okay, let's take some of these. I didn't even see these. Okay, hold on one second. Okay, no one in their right mind would think Chris's social media is abhorrent, but leftists aren't in their right mind, pun intended. They're sterilizing themselves, but in order to keep their cause going there, that's from Ginger Ninja 1776, coming after your kids, do not allow your kids to go to any school. Ginger Ninja, thank you. Amandine. Amandine in French, I think, is almond. Or is it that paste that goes into pastries? What's it called? For goodness sake. No, it's called amandine. Whatever. If minors who get, quote, gender-affirming care were called transsexuals, then it would become very unpopular. Transgender is a euphemism for transsexual. That was a $5. Amon's in 512. Thank you. 63 Telecaster, $21 says lionize the turtle saver. I'm going to show that video at the end. And someone's going to tell me, is that an alligator? Is that a soft-shelled snapping turtle? Or someone was calling it a spiny-shelled, soft-shelled turtle. Was I at risk of getting bitten hard if I grabbed it from the back? That's the question. MB Dash says, I don't think he was a bot. You mentioned Dalai Lama in the stream title. Some of us saw the vid on Twitter. Oh, we're going to watch that. They want to criminalize self-defense, essentially, is what Daddy Crab says. Absolutely. I mean, that's the bottom line to it, because it's analogous, but there are material differences to the Kyle Rittenhouse. I know that I'm inclined in this case to think that people who show up to protest with AK-47s are not as spiritually innocent as a Kyle Rittenhouse type who shows up to a protest to keep the peace and protect the business that he thought he was doing a favor for. I do agree that when the police are not there themselves to keep the peace, this crap happens. That being said, material differences, and we'll see what happens with Greg Abbott's discussion of a pardon. So everybody, head on over to the Rumbles. 820 some odd people still left here. I know some people don't. I don't know. Some people are saying they can't get the Rumble. That's curious to me. Then go to Locals, because I know you can also watch it on Locals. You don't have to support. You can become a member of our wonderful community. Get the camera down here. Let's do it. We're going to go on over to Rumble and Locals, and then Locals afterwards. Now, in 3, 2, 1.